these lessons I've kind of just drawn down from all this stuff that I've learned. And the first one may sound counterintuitive based on all the things that I already mentioned. Lesson one, bigger is not better. Better is better. A lot of times we, like, our identity, our self-worth, it gets tied to these vanity metrics. And, I need to have this many clients. I need to do $1 million a year. I need to, need to have this many locations or this many followers or likes on social media. I even remember back when I was young, just starting lifting weights, there was like this badge of honor if somebody benched 300 pounds or something. Like, vanity metrics are probably, as much of an anchor as they are, a benefit. And I get it. Like, they're easy to count. They're easy to show off, right? Especially in the age of social media. It's easy to display that stuff. But I will tell you that my happiness increased, my success increased when I detached myself or disassociated myself from these vanity metrics. My personal income really went up. My hours worked really went down because now you can actually hone in on what's important. And let me give you an example of what I mean. So let's say that you think in the back of your mind, hey, I want to have a business that does $500,000 annually. Well, odds are you're picking that number because of one of two reasons. Either somebody else showed you or told you that this is the number you need to hit. That's your metric for success. Or you're assuming that if I accomplish this kind of benchmark, then these other things will be happening in my life. Well, if that's the case, maybe we just need to pursue those other things that you're deeming as important, right? So you may say, hey, I'll feel this way. I'll have this security. I'll be able to take this many vacations. I'll be able to hire an employee. I'll be able to put this much money away for retirement. Well, those need to be the goals then, right? Don't assume that top line equals bottom line. I mean, I had a franchise. At one point, we were doing, a couple of years in a row, we're doing franchise-wise sales well over $50 million annually. And I make more money now working in my little home office, just kind of low-key smaller as far as personal income. But you would never assume that. I wouldn't have assumed that. So we need to understand better is better. That doesn't mean you don't want to pursue higher goals. It needs to be that, we need to be specific and understand what those goals are, and they're not always the bigger number. All right, so lesson number two, welcome my man, Billy. There we go. All right, lesson number two, the way we've always done it is the surest path to mediocrity. Virtually all the things that have gone well in my professional life, dating back from when I was a college baseball coach to what I do today, have been when I have stepped away from the norm. When I was a college baseball coach, our path to success was essentially doing everything almost the opposite of our competition. In my time now as a business owner, my first business, we built to over 420 clients in the first 18 months in a small town of less than 30,000 people in the middle of Kentucky, not exactly what we would call the mecca of all things fitness. We did it selling 12-month programs, subscription memberships, 30-minute training sessions, all things that were very non-traditional at the time. I actually had the two most well-known consultants in the industry at the time, both separately tell me I was crazy in far less flattering fashions. And I'm like, man, but it's working, right? And I think that it's been a wonderful reminder to me ever since, and probably given me more confidence to deviate from the norm. Just because that's the way it's been done doesn't mean there's not a better way, or maybe even just as good a way, but is a better fit for me or for you. I mean, that's how I grew franchising as rapidly as we did. I sold 116 franchises my first year franchising personally. Sold them all myself. Actually, many times I had an earpiece in one ear and I had my newborn son on my other shoulder holding him, and I would mute every time that I wasn't talking so they wouldn't hear him. And I was, how did we do it? Well, I sold conversions. I let people kind of co-brand with us and said powered by our franchise. So we approached that differently, right? If you know anything about me, I've sent a daily email for 17 years without missing a day. That's probably what we would call different as well, right? And, the way that I've approached pricing, the way that I've approached doing free or low-cost trials, risk reversal, all that stuff, it's been different. And I'm not saying you have to model any of those specific things. Just understand that if all we're going to do is do things the way they've always been done, the best we can be is like a bad imitation of what already exists, right? Where the other people, and I learned this very early on, they're going to have more experience in you doing this thing. A lot of times, if you're an independent business owner, they've got more resources. So better to look for a different path to the destination. Man, I've seen a couple other people join the Zoom with us. Thank you, guys. Feel free in the chat, if you don't mind, throw out where you're from, too. That'd be awesome. Love to know where we're bringing people in from. And some of you came in since. If you want the notes for what I'm talking about, I have a robust list of notes here, which isn't always the case. So, you want them? Put notes in the chat and we'll get them over to you. All right. So the next one I'm going to talk about, which I'm sure is a very different way of thinking, is connection is more important than retention. Connection, in my mind, has two parts: relationships and results. Relationships, obviously it is a relationship business. There aren't a lot of businesses where you're going to see people 2, 3, 4 times a week. I mean, if I'm seeing the person who cuts my hair 4 times a week, I don't have any hair left, right? If I'm seeing my dentist 4 times a week, we've got problems. So relationships, and then results. I'm not saying results are always measured the same way that we probably think of them, right? Like when somebody comes in, they need, they tell you, I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to lose 30 pounds. A result for them may be a sense of accomplishment, a sense of connectedness. But people need those things. But when we're thinking about connection being more important than retention, then, I think a lot of times people really kind of miss the mark on this, right? They think in terms of unbroken memberships as being the only barometer, right? They think that, okay, somebody's going to stay with me for 12 months, 14 months, 18 months. And if they leave, then that kind of clock starts back at 0 if they ever come back or something like that. Man, I've got people that are, with me now that are people who were with me in 2006 when I was just kind of starting the coaching side of stuff. But none of them are completely like unbroken memberships, right? The unbroken membership side of it, like when I left, I sold my stake in a group of companies, an organization at the end of 2014. Some of those people were under contract for that organization. They came back, some of them came back later. Some of them very quickly, like a few months later, but they've all kind of come and gone at their discretion based on what was going on in their life. And I think that, I would rather have somebody who's with me for 8 years out of 12 than for somebody who's with me for 3 years consecutively, right? I want to build a long-lasting relationship where I think of a client as being under my care. And I'll be the first to tell you that this probably originated from my time as a college baseball coach because, that people are going to graduate. They're not staying with you in perpetuity. But once somebody was a player of mine, it's been about 20 years since I've coached college baseball, and there's not been a week that's gone by since that time that I haven't had at least one conversation, or whether it be text or phone, with a former player or assistant coach. Not a week. And, I think that if we understand that if we're showing up for somebody and we have that relationship and we see them as more than transactional, that's a separator, that's a differentiator. So lifetime value isn't just about unbroken memberships, right? So think about lifetime value being about connection, and it's a value exchange. It's not entirely about immediate transactional value. Think about, like, for me, getting up there in my years doing this. Well, if I may have coached an athlete early on in my time in the fitness industry, well, at this point, a lot of those people are coaching. So they can open doors for me, right? They can connect me with the athletes that they serve. So, all right. So that is number 3. Man, I see my man, Matt Weaver, popping in here. I get to hang out with Matt a little bit later on today. So that's awesome. All right. The easiest way to build wealth is to increase your income. Man, and we've got people on here. I mean, Billy talks a lot about finance for the fitness industry, and in the Facebook group you'll see him sharing. It says William Hofacker there, so don't get confused. I think the ups and downs of the stock market, the way interest rates have moved, things like for people who invest in things like crypto, I think there's that kind of turbulence that goes on. It's a reminder that as a business owner, we need to pay ourselves first. We need to make sure that we're taking care of our personal income. We're doing that. We're not just throwing the money back in, buying new flooring or squat racks for the gym or whatever else, because the more personal income we have, it gives us a margin for error. We don't need immediate gratification from our investments. We can kind of ride things out and have a longer time horizon. We can make more strategic decisions. It allows us to diversify a bit, and it just gives us a sense of control, right? There's a peace of mind in not living paycheck to paycheck. So easiest way to build wealth is personal income. All right, lesson 5, and this is going to be one that it took me a long time to really lean into. You get what you celebrate. And I was my first career, like I mentioned, I was a college baseball coach, and we ended up being very good. We were nationally competitive, and every win for me was a relief. I probably enjoyed 2 wins ever as a college coach. The rest of them was kind of like just a sigh of relief, because I expected to win. I expected to do well, and it wasn't fun, right? There was no enjoyment there. And then losing was, it was excruciating. I'm sure I would have had ulcer after ulcer if I would have continued on down that path. But if we think about this from you get what you celebrate, I mean, it's positive reinforcement in one way, right? Like, that's the first thing. It's just common sense. Like, reinforce the things we want more of. But, in an era where finding and getting good help, getting good members of your team has become more challenging. And it's funny that my man Matt Weaver's on here, because he's got some fun solutions for that I'll look forward to sharing soon with people. But celebrating improves culture, right? So you're creating an environment people want to be a part of. It keeps you motivated. It makes the whole journey, the process, more enjoyable. It heightens focus. But you have to understand, celebration is not just an event, it's a habit. It's a continual behavior. I coach my son's 12U baseball team, and it's amazing how many lessons that I learned from that are reminded of that are applicable to working in the adult world. And, I've had such positive feedback from parents. There's nothing that I'm doing that is out of the ordinary, I don't think, from a tactical or teaching standpoint, but I just tell the kids I'm proud of them every time I'm proud of them. And it doesn't really take much more than that, right? Like, we all want people to believe in us, right? So celebrate things and understand that you get more of what you celebrate. All right. Lesson 6, develop non-traditional assets for leverage. It's funny. Like I mentioned, my buddy Matt's on here. that's some of what we're doing with his stuff right now. Is he's creating a really robust licensing program of just a rock star chain of facilities that he's had. And it's taking non-traditional assets. And what do I mean by non-traditional? Like, not stuff that would show up on like a balance sheet, right? But emails, podcasts, books, sales pages, scripts, standard operating procedures or systems, ads, experiences, stories, social proof. The great thing about this is they save time. They allow for scale. They can be sold, right? Like, that's what I'm talking about there. They help build your brand. So you don't ever have to stare at a blank page. You can replicate the things that you're doing at scale. And, you know, it's something a lot of us overlook, but you would be amazed at how many things you probably have in the archives that you've got tucked away in a Google Drive or Dropbox or something somewhere that allow you to not have to start at square one the next time you do something, right? And in fact, I mean, that's one of the things that I've offered to people throughout the years. That's what franchising is in many ways. It's, I am taking somebody else's collection of non-traditional assets so I can deploy that and save myself the time and the risk. All right, so that was number 6. By the way, if you want a copy of these notes, put notes in the chat. That would be wonderful. Lesson number 7, build on what you are confident and competent in. Yes, we're all smart. We're all capable of learning new things and developing new skills. And if you're really excited about learning something new, have at it. But understand that you can't be a do-it-yourselfer for everything and move fast. You can't do that and have high probability. You can't probably do it and enjoy the entire process over and over and over, right? If you play to your strengths, if you build on the things that you're confident and competent in, you're going to have more fun. You're going to be able to go faster than the competition. You're going to be able to create leverage, and you're going to be able to maximize your effective hourly rate. So that's a big one. All right, lesson 8. Now you're going to have to roll with some math here for me, okay? You can have an 8-day week. You can have an 8-day week because a day is 1,440 minutes, right? So now, mind you, that's 24 hours. Most of us aren't working 24 hours, I certainly hope. But think about it this way, just very strategically. What can we pull off of our plate? What can we delegate or outsource that add up to 1,440 minutes over the course of a week, right? A lot of times people talk about, well, I need to delegate this or outsource that. And then they talk about, man, if there were just more hours in the day, more days in the week, if I had more time, I could do this. Well, be strategic about it. What can we do? What can we automate? What can we delegate to gain that extra 1,440 minutes? And if we want to think about this, let's say normally you work 10-hour days. I mean, what can we do just for 600 minutes over the course of a week to accomplish this? We're essentially buying ourselves with technology or with human capital. We're buying ourselves an extra day a week. I mean, you want to talk about leverage. That's it. All right. Lesson 9, community and accountability drive achievement. Nothing is going to expand your belief as to what is possible more than being around a bunch of other people who have done those types of big things. You know, environment matters. I am from a small town in the in the kind of middle southern part of Ohio. Actually, a gentleman that I know was on the Kelly Clarkson show today talking about how his little gym has played kind of the first domino effect in helping people recover from opioid addiction. And there's been a lot of that, right? In my town, where it was a Rust Belt town, just getting a stable job and having stable income that you could go work somewhere and maybe retire from, like that was like the the beacon of hope, so to speak, right? Like that was everybody's North Star. You weren't around a lot of people who thought bigger. You weren't around a lot of people who thought about doing big things. So, and I know that being exposed to other people who were doing more, doing better, doing things that maybe I hadn't seen before changed my perspective. So understand that being around other people, who you surround yourself with, in what you surround yourself with. I understand that Jim Rohn said, hey, the 5 people you're around most, that kind of dictates what your success will look like. I don't know if the magic number is 5, but I know environment in that sense, what you're immersed in, makes a massive difference. Yes, Matt is 100% spot on with that. And if anybody understands how to create leverage like that, it is him. And then what is measured is improved. So we're talking about this community and accountability drive achievement. Understand that when we take the role as a business owner, we're kind of saying, okay, I'm not going to have the same traditional type of accountability a lot of people have, right? I'm going to have to derive my accountability from other places. Traditional meaning I've got a manager, I've got a boss that's going to tell me what my expectations are this week, what's due, what I need to accomplish. Now that's on us. Sure, to an extent, we're accountable to our clients, but we're the ones kind of having to set the parameters there of what that looks like. And you want to take it a step further. If you're doing things online, then we don't have that inherent accountability that comes with having an appointment at the gym with people waiting on me, or having a lease that I'm committed to, or whatever else. So understand that what gets measured gets improved, but what is held accountable improves exponentially and rapidly, right? Like we need some accountability to thrive and reach our potential. All right, so lesson 10. Decide how you are going to measure success. And I tell you this, and I'm going to even throw in kind of a disclaimer with each of these. First, these are mine. These are how I measure success. And I'm not telling you to adopt mine. I'm saying pick yours. Pick the things that are important to you. And when I talk about this stuff, like, for example, legacy, for me, legacy for those I care about is a big deal. Now, I say that, and people may be thinking, well, that's fine. He's got some money put away already. He does pretty well. No, money provides security. Money is a part of that, but money is a tool to allow me to accomplish that, right? But legacy for those I care about, experiences with those I care about. So shared experiences, whether it be time with friends or vacations with family or whatever else. And again, there's a financial component to that that helps to create those opportunities to do it. Enjoyment of the journey, enjoyment of the process. And again, the money side of this, no money stress, right? Like I don't have money stress from my business. And growing up in a household where my dad owned a garage, like fixing cars, auto repair business, money stress was like just a given. It was just constant. And so I don't want my journey to be such that it's an unpleasant one, because we spend so much time or so many hours on the journey. A lot of times people focus on the destination, but if the journey stinks, then we're probably overlooking perhaps the most important part. And then relationships with those I enjoy. I've choreographed my entire business to spend time with people that I really enjoy. Clients, coworkers, colleagues, whatever. And it's key, right? Like surround yourself with people you want to spend time with. We've got meetings at my house the next couple of weeks, or meetings in Louisville, and then we'll have dinner at my house. And I kind of have an unwritten rule. People don't come on as clients unless I would want them to come and hang out at my house. So, all right. So lesson 11, adaptability is required for sustainable success. Now, you'll hear me often talk about building around things that won't change. And that is something that is inherently true. So don't think that I'm kind of talking out of both sides of my mouth, so to speak here. Build around these concepts that don't change, but understand that we've got to adapt to circumstances and technology, because that's continually evolving. If we didn't adapt, to circumstances during the pandemic, there was no way we were going to stay in business. If, I started my first business long before there was an iPhone. And if you didn't adapt to the way that was going to impact people, again, you were going to get left behind. We have to adapt to circumstances. We have to adapt to technology and use them to execute. And then, we should continually be adapting to better information and greater wisdom. One of the things that I talk about when we do our annual planning with clients in December every year is we're writing out our goals in pencil. Because if we're talking about an annual goal, well, if I'm saying, okay, I want to accomplish this by December 31st, I should have more data. I should have more knowledge. I should be able to make better decisions 6 months into this journey, into this process. So we have to be able to adapt to the ever-changing level of knowledge and expertise that we have. The more exposure we have to good information, the faster we can course correct, the better decisions we can make. So we have to be adaptable. And then finally, and anybody who knows me knows this is kind of the hallmark of all of it for me, relationships matter most. And we are in a service business. We're in a people business. And I love systems, and they've helped me a great deal. I mean, I was nerdy about that stuff. Man, I had a 136-page playbook when I was coaching college baseball, when most people had like a worksheet. And, so I like that, but I understand that this is all about human beings that we are serving, that we're teammates with, all of it. But understand relationships are earned and they have to be nurtured. Like, they don't just happen, right? They're not a transaction where I paid for this, I own it. Right? These are things that have to be earned and continually nurtured. I know in my world, most people who are clients, A, stay for a long time in some way, shape, or form, but B, most of them knew of me. They were on my email list or listened to podcasts or whatever else for over a year. So I had to earn their trust. I had to earn the right to do business with them. And that's wonderful. And the people who didn't take that long almost always come either because we got to fast track that through a referral, so a trusted kind of conduit to build a relationship, or maybe we met in person at an event that I spoke at, and again, that kind of got to fast track things. I think from my perspective, relationships are about honoring the other person and honoring their time, right? If somebody is going to give you their time and attention, you can't take that for granted for a second. We especially live in a world now where there are countless things tugging at people's attention each and every day, practically each and every minute. So if somebody is willing to give you their time and attention, you need to honor that and make sure that you're treating it with the greatest possible respect. You need to take responsibility for the continuation of that relationship. Don't just assume that it happens. Don't expect the other person to do everything. I think a lot of times there are misplaced expectations there. You hear me talk a lot about follow-up. I'm the person who sent a daily email for 17 years. I mean, that's follow-up, right? But I'm saying if I want this relationship to continue, I've got to do my part. And so that's part of it. And then, this goes almost without saying, but it's important enough that I'm going to say it anyway. Everything's about people, everything. So we're using technology to create efficiencies and leverage in building relationships with people. But it's not about technology. It's about the people that we're reaching or serving through the technology, right? The technology isn't the thing buying our service and trusting themselves to our care, to pursue their hopes and dreams, to help alleviate their problems. So understand that everything's about people. And I think the better we grasp that, the better off we're going to be, the better our business is going to be. All right. Well, those are the 12 lessons that I wanted to share. Obviously, you do this as long as I've done it. You be involved in so many different areas of business in the ways that I have. plenty of things you pick up, but these are the ones, like a lot of people talk tactical, right? A lot of people want to talk about this is the ad you run, or this is the funnel, or whatever else. And it's not that those things aren't important. It's just, for me, these are things that kind of serve as constraints to help me make decisions when I am deploying tactical things, right? Because I need to understand, where am I trying to go? What's important to me? How should I be thinking when I'm choosing who to hire, what to deploy, what type of client to serve, what kind of ways do I want to serve them? So hopefully this has been valuable to you. What might have been your number one takeaway, if you don't mind me asking, thus far? Number one takeaway on this. And by the way, if you do want the notes, I've got some fancy notes here. Just put notes in the chat wherever you're listening, and we will get those over to you. All right. Yeah, Jamie is leading the charge here. Bigger is not better. Better is better. Yeah. That one's been a game changer for me, for sure. Let's see. Any other big takeaways? Clients are under our care. That's a fun one, right? Thank you, Drew. There you go. More people talking about notes. I like it. Relationships is the most important. Very good.
I forgot the exact numbers, but I like what you said. You compared someone working with you for 8 out of 12 years versus 3 years, and that's it. And that's a big difference over the long term. So that was a good takeaway.
Thank you, Billy. Yeah, man, I just think about, like, I think about it this way, and everybody has their own way of approaching stuff, but I think in terms of, like, man, I collect relationships. Like, that's one of the things that I try to do. But I also know that, it's not like collecting coins or cards or something like that, that it's just this thing that gets to sit over here in a room. It's this living, breathing thing that I have to nurture over time. So if I've not heard from somebody in a while, then I'm going to be reaching out to them. I'm going to make sure that we're still in touch. And fortunately, I think I attract people into my life that think similarly. So it's not always the burden doesn't entirely fall on me. I just try to remind myself that it's my responsibility. All right. Again, if you guys want the notes, let me know. All right. Any questions about how you can apply any of these specific lessons to your own situation, to your own business, to your own circumstances? Anything you guys would like to talk about specific to you?
Yeah, Pat, I got a question. I think it'll probably help others too. Like, I love the idea of, 20 years later, you're still keeping in touch with guys. And for me, I know, like, part of me knows it's just having some margin, but at the same time, you get caught up with your day. I have, my day specifically today, I had 2 clients before this. Now I'm on this, and then I have another meeting. And it's, how does that actually happen in your day to day? Is it just something you're like, oh, let me check in with this guy, or is it something you're kind of planning or intentional about?
Both. I think when I know that I want to reach out to somebody specific, I talk at length about planning my day the evening prior, and I will do a good job of jotting that down and saying, okay, I'm going to reach out to this person, and usually specify a time that I'm going to try to do that, knowing the other things I have, committed to that day. Some of it is very organic too. Like, for a long time, this is the first year that I've not taken a child to school or picked them up because my younger one wants to ride the bus. Well, when I'd be sitting in the car rider line, I would just take 15 minutes and I'd just start texting people or shooting people emails and reaching out to them, or just randomly calling. Or a couple of days ago, I had to drive my mom back to Ohio. You know, just calling people on the road, leaving them a message if nothing else, or whatever. So some of it is just understanding that if I do get small gaps of space, that's a priority for me to use that space with. We talk a lot about this in the business side. That 10-minute sprint we talk about, where let's take 10 minutes and we're just going to do a lot of outreach. I mean, it's that, but maybe a more organic fashion. But then, and sometimes you need to allocate specific windows of time. And then, for me, I think of this, like I said, relationships are a top priority for me. So they get time in my planner the same way this Zoom would get time in my planner. All right. Jamie.
I would love to know your behind the scenes, of how you hold people accountable, what that actually looks like tangibly, and how do you decide how to choose?
How I hold people accountable, it depends on the person, right? I think there are people who are infinitely better at me. I see Matt Weaver's hands raised. I think Matt's probably as good as anybody at doing this sort of thing. For me, it is being clear about expectations. It is helping them understand the why behind the expectations and coaching them till they get it. The analogy I would use is, like, if this were a football team, I may give somebody a playbook, but we're still going to have practices and run the plays to make sure they get the plays. But they need to understand what the bigger picture is of the plays. Because what happens a lot, especially in a world where the people that work with me are dealing with humans, not just executing. This isn't like, well, hey, here's how you fix the fries at McDonald's. They're going to be asked things that are off script. Well, if they understand the why, then they know how to navigate the gray areas that may not be in the FAQ. They may not already be in the knowledge base, but if I'm coaching them on the why, then I can do it. And then, I will say that I'm pretty understanding as a leader, in that, if somebody's making an effort, then we're gonna, I think of it probably as like when I assign somebody to do something and they get 19 things right and they get one wrong. Well, the one wrong was probably I'd have probably gotten one wrong out of the 20 as well, but it's also part of the price of getting the 19 things handed off my plate. So it's just a continual kind of thing. But I also think I don't have to ever think about kind of the hard, like, heavy-handed accountability, because I really am genuinely interested in the people, right? Like, I don't have a lot of conversation with people about business exclusively. There's almost always some conversation where I ask them about them as well. I know you helped me with this as a good example. When I talked to you the other day, I'm pretty sure I was asking about your birthday. So, like, there's that piece. Man, well, I see Drew's got a question and Matt's got his hand up. So you navigate it, Jamie. You're in charge.
Well, I want to say thank you. The piece, I think, is the why behind it. So thank you for that. Matt, you're up. If you want to unmute.
Yeah, thank you. I actually just wanted to comment, Pat. My big takeaway was really on, like you said, measuring the relationships rather than like an unbroken membership. And I just want to kind of just summarize, like, my history with Pat probably goes back, I don't know, 12, 13, 14 years, somewhere in that window. I'm getting too old to remember anymore. And it started at a live event, couple handshakes here and there, bought some products from and through Pat over the years, but shared an email here or commented on a post here, and he was always, responds back to anything I ever sent him in an email. And all of that to say is I would just say what we transacted on over that time was marginal, right? Business. But what I've come to him most recently for, a dozen plus years later, is bigger than every single little transaction that we did over those 12 years. So if there's a lesson, right, with Pat's ruthless consistency, is he's just like been there over the years, maintained his level of authority and trust. And while I might have not been any sort of big ticket customer of any sort of Pat's and his, all of the things he's done over the years, suddenly I'm coming to him for a mega project, seemingly out of the blue. So just wanted to use that as a kind of a real life example, right? Where somebody relationship wise maintained for a long time, over a decade. And, well, it's not, like we go out golfing every month or anything like that. It's enough where when I've got a big thing I'm working on, Pat became my go-to immediately without question. I didn't sort through 5 people or ask anybody else for a quote for what I wanted to work with Pat on. And I think that's just a big testament to the lessons he's teaching here today.
Well, I am very grateful for that. And hopefully, it's not going to be too long before everybody who's checking this out right now can peek behind the curtain and see some of those things we're working on too. So that's fun.
Got another question for you in the chat from Drew. Hey, Drew, with the volume of clients oh shoot, it just went down the feed. Drew, I got to find it now.
I got it. It says, with the volume of clients you have, do you have to keep client notes to remember who's who, or what's that like when you get to a higher volume of clients?
Do I have to? Maybe not. Do I? Yes. I think I'm pretty good at remembering that sort of stuff. And I think that just, is one of those things that came from spending a lot of time recruiting early on in my life as a college baseball coach. But I do. I jot down notes. I try to be attentive and have some way to document some things. But I'll be honest, like I probably get away more with just genuinely being interested instead of just waiting to talk. And because of that, because I'm interested, it plant some seeds, and I'll try to ask questions about things that are maybe a little bit outside the norm, because those are going to be memorable things, right? Like if all you ever ask somebody is the basic stuff, then there's a lot of overlap. But if you ask people to go a little bit deeper, then you get to learn some other cool stuff. Like Billy's on here. Not too many people here know Billy's like had professional MMA fights and stuff. So, but that's because that's not on the bio, right? Like, but we learn things about people by being interested. So I think that's a big piece of it too. And it's funny, but it's like, man, my business model is not real complicated. It's like go be interested in people and follow up with them and then coach them till they pay you to coach them.
If you guys have other questions, feel free to unmute and ask. We probably have time for 1 or 2 more. This is a good opportunity to get them answered.
Yeah.
Go for it, Morgan.
Okay, I know I jumped on late, but you say coach them until they pay you to coach them. Okay, how do you know when that line is ready to, like, do they ask? Do you offer? Like, how is that clear? Because I feel like that could just lead on for a very long time.
I think that everything is case by case. I understand the ambiguity when I answer something like this, but I think that, okay, so I met you and Jamie at the exact same time almost, right? Like within a week. And I don't lump you two in as one when I think about what people's career pursuits are or where they are in their journey or what's important to them. It's just not really how I think about any of this because, well, we've got a nice group of people here. I understand that each and every one of them is here for their own individual reasons to pursue their own individual goals. They've got their own challenges. They've got their own dreams. And so I don't think there's like a one size fits all answer. I think that, you know, the how I coach them probably is pretty fluid on my part. Some of the coaching is this, right? I mean, people can come to this forever. They can read my newsletter forever. And I will help them. Now, at some point, I will remind people if it were a one-on-one question or something, say, well, you know, I need to be fair to the people who are invested clients in coaching programs that I can't give away the things that they're valuing monetarily. But, you know, so when I say the coach till they pay to coach them, it's not like I'm giving somebody like an exact parallel experience or service that I would for, you know, paying client. It's more or less that I'm giving people, I mean, I've told you guys here the same stuff I would tell you if you were sitting in front of me, paying me a really significant fee. You know, and I don't really hold back on that sort of stuff. I just know that, you know, there's only so much of me to go around. So when it gets into personal, one-on-one, small group, intimate, kind of individualized solutions, that's typically where the fee-based stuff comes.